So when we're choosing image types, so whether it's the About Us page, anything in the About Us page, no, we haven't here, the About Us page, then make sure it's usually JPEG, which is JPG files. So you have like the file name, like myimage.jpg, or you'll have myimage.png. So it's a JPEG file, or we call a PNG file, PNG file. They're the two ones that you want to be using, really. There are some other ones, but 99% of the time, it's going to be one of them too. The JPEG is for most of the images you use for the system. For things like logos, you'd want to use PNG. Images are slightly better, but to be fair, either of those, PNG or JPEG, as long as you're using those two file types, it should be fine. Choosing the right background image. So if I go on to, do you mind if we use one of your sites? Is anyone averse to that? Does anyone use the new front page layout?
I think we do. If you can hear me, it's Helen, yeah. And it's volunteer.nationalmuseumsni.org. Yeah.
Okay, perfect, and a good example as well. Thank you for that. So you see, this layout is similar to this is the modern style layout we've been using for quite a few years now, and it's the only kind of option for our new customers. So we're talking about the image, choosing the right image here for the background. Now, obviously, if I chose an image with these people talking and it was right in the middle of the image, then we wouldn't see it because it'd be behind these white boxes. So the point I'm trying to make with this is, if to think about the layout of it, think about where these white boxes are going to appear in the center of the page, and make sure that the focal point of the image does not sit behind the white box, because obviously that's going to be weird. You're not going to see. Everyone's eyes are drawn to the thing they can't see, which is not a good idea. So the way to get around this is either use something with no obvious focal point. Now, there is a kind of a focal point here, but you can see it, which is perfectly fine. We've got a couple of the focal points over here with the text and this, that, and the other. That's perfectly fine. Looks good, actually. But another way that some customers get around it is they will use collage pictures. So they might use kind of, like you say, like three or four images across the wide, and then maybe 2 or 3 images deep, up and down vertically, and then they'll just do a collage. So there's multiple focal points. So the point is that this box in the middle doesn't feel like it's obstructing the thing that your eyes naturally want to, are getting drawn to. Does that make sense? So make sure when you're choosing your images, either collages, multiple focal points, or no focal point at all. Sometimes you can just do like a, like a landscape picture or something like that. We've got some of our customers, and that's perfectly fine because there is no focal points for those. Okay. All right. Next, we've got logos. We kind of covered those. Is there any questions over resolutions and what I've just covered so far? Make sure before I carry on. Good. Okay. So with the logos, make sure you're using the PNG images. The next thing is the with this front page section here. So if we go into the demo site, and I go down to this front page section, look and feel. Home page. Okay. What we can do is obviously we can put the logo in there, we can change the colors. Then we've got this home page area here where we're uploading the background image. So I can choose a background image here. Now, obviously, taking into consideration what we've just spoken about, I'd choose a background image which is which adheres to those points I just made. It has multiple focal points, it has 0 focal points, is a high quality. Most importantly, is one of the original images. I'm not saying this one I'm going to do now is, but it should be like one when you're doing it, make sure it's a raw, one of the original images. So we get on here, the demo site, let's refresh this page. Okay, and then we've got this image on the back. Actually, that image is it's a pretty good image. It's obviously one of the original images in terms of the quality of it. Okay, and I don't see any problems with that. The focal point is probably the castle that my eye's drawn to, and that's not hidden by this white box, so I've got no issues with that. Now, what some people don't realize is you can add additional information onto this front page. So we've got the login button. You can obviously change the word login. You can change the word in here for register and join our community. And we know we can update the logo. We can change the colors of these buttons as well. And then we've got the background. What you can also do on top of all this is put in a little message box. Okay, so if I put in a message here, Stevie's message here. Okay, I can change the color of the text if I want to, and the background color, and I can save it. What does that do, Steve? Well, I'll show you what that does. Okay, it brings up a little message here, and that's I've defined the color of the font, and I've defined the color of the background there. Okay. So what kind of things do you think you might want to include in this message box? You don't have to have one, but if you did, what kind of things? Has anyone used the message box? I suppose that's a good place to start with this. Yep. Phaedra?
I can actually just read it out to you because I have the web page open in the back. But we've used the message box, and ours just says, thank you for volunteering at one of our events or programs and being a part of the change that we're making. You will directly impact the life of a young woman or non-binary person by sharing your STEAM journey, knowledge, and skills.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's good. No issues with that. What's your web page address? Just so I can let the people see it.
I'm just going to paste it in the call.
Okay, if you could, yeah. So we'll take a look, a little nosy. Okay, so we've got no background image on this one yet, but we have the text putting across there. Okay, so this is just like an intro, isn't it? So thank you for volunteering one of our events and programs and being part of the change we're making. It will directly impact the life of a young woman or non-binary for the better by sharing your STEM journey, knowledge, and skills. Okay, nice little introduction there. Is there anything else that you might? That's like an introduction. There's other things that you might feel would be best positioned there, right on the front page. Anyone think of any other things you might want to put in there? What about, I can give some examples. What about if it's an event, you might say when registration ends. Some of you out there have event systems. So there's a definite start and end to the event, and there'll be a definite, okay, this is when we stop taking registrations for volunteers for this particular event. So if there's an end date to the registration, something else you should definitely put in there. Basically, it's anything you think the volunteer would need to know before they make a decision on whether to register on the system. That's essentially what you're trying to put in here. Some put in the organization's tagline or strap lines. Some clarify who can register. You must be over the age of 18, for example. Again, that's something which you'd want to let them know before they actually start trying to register themselves. Some might put in there, when they'll be in contact with them. We'll be in contact within 5 days. To be honest with you, that kind of thing, I think that's not probably best placed here. I think that's best placed on the registration help page, which we're going to come on to shortly. Yeah, any questions over this? Okay, good. Okay, next we've got the About Us page. So on your system, you go up here and you go down to Setup. You got the About Us page up here. Okay, and we can put whatever we want into this About Us page, and we can add images and text and this, that, and the other. Okay, now the About Us page is accessible from the user's perspective, from the volunteer's perspective, and providers, I suppose. When they land on the front page, it's in this top right-hand corner. And if I click on it, it takes them through to the About Us page. Now, obviously, this is a demo system, so it looks quite bland. What I might be inclined to do is look at yours, if you don't mind. National Museums, Northern Ireland. Okay, so that's their About Us page. Put a nice image in there, the bit of text, well laid out. Okay, it could just be text with an image on the side. They've kind of gone a bit all out with this one here. But you definitely want to complete your About Us page, okay, because it's one of the first things that volunteers tend to click on, in all honesty. One of the popular things anyway. Now, when it comes to these About Us pages, sometimes people get confused with adding the images in there. I've noticed this in the past. So when you're adding images through TeamKinetic, it's always in the same way. So you choose where you want to add the image. Maybe I want it between these two lines here. Click on the image here in the toolbar. image icon. I click on upload because what I've got to do, I've got to upload it to the actual server, to the TeamKinetic server. So if anyone goes to that TeamKinetic site, they can see that image. So we have to upload it. Okay, so we click on upload, choose the file. Okay, I pick a nice image here. I'll do. Send it to server. Okay. Don't worry about this preview bit. Sometimes it looks a bit stretched and squashed or whatever, but in reality, it won't turn out like that. I don't know what shows that. It will look fine. So we've got the width here and the height. So this is going back to that resolution I was talking about. This is 1,000 dots wide and 666 dots high, the resolution of this image I'm uploading. I can also put in borders around it if I want. So this is like how tight the text is packed into the actual image itself. Okay. And I can put some horizontal spacing, some additional horizontal spacing and vertical spacing here if I want to. And obviously I've got alignment if I align it left or right. And align it left. This alternate text, this is if someone hovers the mouse over the image, what it will say. Basically, it's kind of the name of the image or the description of the image. It's particularly important for those people who are visually impaired. So when they're moving the mouse around over an image, it will actually read out to them in their ear what is in this box here. Okay. So there we go. Let's put the image in there. If you think it's wrong, click on it. We can't adjust it once it's in there, but we can click on it, delete it, and we can re-edit and change the sizes of it, whatever we think we need to do. Okay. Next, we're going to look at provider profile pages. So just to go over what we've covered here, we talked about the resolution of the images. We spoke about the front page, the background image on the front page. Okay, on this page here. Okay, we talked about the message boxes here. We spoke about the About Us page, and now we're talking about the provider profile pages. So what is a provider profile page, just for those who are not sure? Each of your providers has their own mini page within the system, which shows just their opportunities. Okay, and the purpose being is that if someone's searching for an opportunity, say I'm just a random volunteer here on the system, I search for an opportunity. If I click on the name of the opportunity, it takes me to the opportunity. We all know that. If I click on the name of the provider, it takes me through to the provider profile page, which shows me just information about that provider and opportunities currently being offered by that provider. If I click on First Choice Sports, okay, this is the name of the provider, an image, a bit of text about the provider, and here's opportunities that provider is currently offering. It's called the provider profile page. It's a good idea for the reason I just kind of made before, in terms of how easy it is for volunteers to click on the provider name anywhere on the system and it will take them to this page, to make sure that your providers do have those provider profile pages populated. Okay. Does anyone think that they have providers on their system where they haven't populated this page? I'm expecting quite a few of you to say yes to this. Put your hand up if you think that you've got providers on your system that have not populated this page. Yeah, that's it. Rosie, Andrea. I'll be surprised if it's not at least half of you on here. Like, yeah. Okay, and it's a bit of a struggle. I know it's a bit of a struggle with you because you want to get them to do it because you don't know about that, especially ones where the providers are external organizations, your volunteer centers amongst us here. So it's trying to get, obviously you don't have their images, so you have to try and get them to do it if you can, and information about their organization. But if you try and every now and again just send out an email to those particular providers and try and get them to do that, and it just makes the experience for the volunteer a little bit slicker if they click on it. I mean, if they click on it and they haven't done the provider profile page, it will literally just say the name of the provider, then underneath it have their opportunities. But it's nice if it has a bit of information, a bit of bump about the provider and an image related to the provider. It just looks a lot nicer. So how do you do that? How does the providers do that, I should say? Well, I'll show you now. If I go to the provider list here, okay, and I impersonate a provider, this is one of the few things you can't do as an admin. You have to impersonate a provider to be able to update the profile pages. But so I'm impersonating a provider here. So essentially, I'm logged in as one of your as a provider. So if I go down to account, public profile, okay, this is the image that they've added for that particular provider, and this is the profile text that they've added for that particular provider. Okay, so it's all the same rules apply that I've mentioned before. You know, the images that they use, try and get them to use good quality images, try and get them in to put in a bit of bump. Try and make sure it's related to volunteering. It's not just a bit of text about their organization as a whole. Try and, usually it's better if it says, this is the kind of volunteering that we do, and explains, you know, keep it related to volunteering at the very least. So yeah, another thing to add to your to-do list, check your provider's profile pages. There is things you can go above and beyond, which I'm going to touch on now, but I'm not going to go into any detail because it's quite a technical thing to do, which is when you go into setup and you go down to see. Oh, it's not here. Sorry, it's in look and feel. Sorry, look and feel. We've got CSS. So the CSS is a way for you to go above and beyond in terms of the design and manipulation of the site. Okay, so if you go to using CSS, you can change a lot more than the options that are built into the TeamKinetic system. Okay, but you need to know what CSS is. Personally, I'm not a CSS coder. But if you have anyone who knows CSS within your organization, you might want to put in touch and say, look, this is a site here. Is there anything you can do to make it, customize it even further using CSS code? And if they know how to use it, then it's quite straightforward for them. Okay. I don't know if anyone's used CSS code. There is one site I saw here, Passport, I think it was. Yeah, this is the CSS. So this is the old classic style template or kind of layout. But you see, this is all CSS code. So what they've done to the front page. But like I say, you need to know what CSS code is. We'll try it out. Okay, so that's your CSS code. And the final thing we haven't covered here is the footers. So logo we've covered, colors, pretty straightforward. Homepage layout, we spoke about the messages and the background images. CSS we spoke about. Footer. So the footer is a section at the bottom of most web pages, not just TeamKinetic, most web pages. If you look on your web page, you've probably got a footer on here. Here is Volunteer Sefton's web page, not TeamKinetic system web page. Right down the bottom here, there's a footer. Okay, so this section here, this purple section, is what you call a footer. Okay, and it's like a catch-all section, usually at the bottom, which kind of says, all right, if you haven't found what you're looking for and everything so far, then here's some links to some pages that might answer your question. Sometimes not every system has a footer. You don't have to. It's optional. The kind of things I tend to see in footers are links to contact us, links to the privacy statement, links to the terms and conditions, the address information or the registered charity number, all that kind of stuff. These are the kind of things you'd expect to see in a footer. And you can do the same within your TeamKinetic system. So within the TeamKinetic system, you can go to footer here. And the way it's broken down is we've got 4 sections, A, B, C, and D. Now, A and D are basically the same. It's just static text. So if I go, I don't know if this will update straight away. Hi there, section A. Okay. Then I put in, hi there, section D here. Get rid of that bit there. So I've got A and D are the only 2 sections that I've marked here. So B and C are left blank. So what's the consequence of me doing that? I save it. Go back to the front page. Here. Okay, then I click on the search button and we should see the footer. Sometimes footers take a couple of minutes to update, so there's a chance this won't update straight away. No, it hasn't. No. But what you would see in this grey section down here, which is the footer, you would see that text appearing. So why have we got 4 sections for the footer? The reason we got 4 sections is because you've got static text like contact us information, like you just had on your website here. It was like contact us information, the charity, registered charity, charity number, links to the about us, links to the privacy statement, all that kind of stuff. That's all static text. That's all never going to change. You put that in there, you're not expecting it to change. But then we got these sections B and C in the middle here, where we can include dynamic content. What do we mean by that? It means we can insert information in there which might change on a daily basis, like the latest news that you've added to the system, or maybe the latest opportunities that have been added to the system. So the reason we have two boxes A and D with the static content is you might want the static content to appear after the dynamic content or before the dynamic content. So have a think about your footers if you need them, if you do want them, what should be included in them. Yeah. Any questions over footers? Is it good? Right. What you can also do within TeamKinetic is on any of these pages where you can type text into, pretty much all of them, you've got this button at the top which says source. Has anyone here heard of HTML? Anyone heard of HTML code? Put your hand up if you heard of HTML. Yep, Rose, yes.
I actually have a question about this. So I've tried to do some HTML like customization on the emails, and I can do some basics. So my HTML isn't great. I haven't done it for a long time.
Same here.
I can't seem to, when I put like a dividing line, like a divider, I can put in a divider, but I can't seem to change the thickness of it or the color. Like I've put in the code, I've checked the code, I've taken the code off ChatGPT, and it still won't do it. And for the sake of argument, I put in something different from ChatGPT just to make sure it worked. Like I asked it to HTML a table for me because I know that code, and it did, and it worked. So I can't understand why I can't change the color. I can't, like, I don't know if it's just not possible, like the way you've got the system, or whether there is something I'm doing wrong and I don't know what it is.
Okay, no worries. If you wait at the end of the session here, I'll tell you, it's one of them things where, sorry, say again, sorry.
Rolf's just put in something in the chat. Hang on. So caption only limited HTML is allowed to help protect against unsanitized, dangerous HTML like script tags.
Yeah.
Plenty of support.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah, sure, I can do that. It's just I just want the dividing lines to be our to be able to divide up emails we send to volunteers. You know, like newsletters and call outs for volunteer roles and stuff. And I just like it to be our colours, essentially our brand colours.
Yeah, no worries.
So I can
you raise a support ticket or hold on at the end of this meeting here.
Sure.
We'll go from there, and we'll have a look at your specific. I don't want to drag everyone else, but we'll have a look at your specific example and figure out what it is. There's no reason why it shouldn't work. Obviously, we have some kind of sanitations for security reasons and making sure certain code isn't put in there. But there should be no, if it's HTML code, there should be no issues around it. So for most of you are thinking, what on earth is HTML code, Steve? HTML code is like the fundamental code that web pages are written in. Okay, they might have other bits of code and on top of it, but the fundamental code, like the most basic code, is a HTML code. So if you see this bit of text here, that's going to let's do the about us page. Might be an easy one to look at actually. If I go to setup, I'll look and feel, Steve. Look and feel. Also, it's on setup. It is in setup. About this page. So we've got a bit of text in here. Now, it says this is some head text, and it's quite large text. The HTML code is like I say, it's it's the actual code that decides what format it should be, what size the text should be in, where to put the image, if there's borders. It's all HTML code. So if I click on the source button, we can actually see the HTML code around this. Okay, so it's P, which means start of a new paragraph. This is about you, end of the paragraph there. Then it's got H1, which is heading 1, which is why the text is larger. And then it's got, this is some head text. And then there's a /H1, which means the end of the heading text. So that's what basically makes the text look like that. Okay. So the reason I'm telling you this is because you might say, as we just heard him talking about then, you might say, actually, I want to do more. It looks good, but I want to. There's some additional adjustments I want to make, and these adjustments are not available within these editor tools up here. That's fine. You can just do it using the HTML code. And if you're not sure, there is a million paid help documents on HTML code. Okay, we're not going to include it in here because there's so much you could do in HTML code. So we can't include like an instruction manual how to do it, because it depends specifically on what you need to change. But it shouldn't be hard for you to Google it and find out exactly what HTML code you need to use to make the heading either look bolder in this example here, or just plain text in this example here. Okay, so if you feel adventurous, feel free to have a crack at that. Onboarding. Okay, so when a volunteer registers, okay, they type in the first name, last name, all the details. They click on the register button. What's the first thing that they see? They want to pop a hand up. What's the first thing that they see that appears after a volunteer registers? It's the new registration help page. Okay, so it's essentially, find it here, new registration help page here. Okay, it's whatever we type into here. So they register, they put in information, they click on the register button, then a window appears. Okay, it's called the new registration help page. And that window that appears is basically to tell them, okay, fundamentally tell them this is what happens next, or give them some critical information that you know will be going through the volunteer's mind at that point in time. And it usually is, well, what happens next? That's usually the question that's going on in their heads. Okay, so this is a really important thing. Is anyone not aware of the new registration help page? Don't be afraid to say if you're not. Okay, Jamie. Okay, so this is something that you definitely want to do. Okay. So what kind of things might you put in the new registration help page? Well, I've told you one of them. It might be what happens next. That might be one of the things you put in there. Anything else? Have a think about what things you've got in there, those who have done the new registration help page. Is anything on top of that? What happens next that you've included in there? No? Well, the kind of things that you see, well, obviously the what happens now, that's the most common one, where you might say, okay, next we're going to review your application and we'll be in touch with you soon via telephone or something like that. Or you might say, thanks for registering. Feel free to go ahead and search for opportunities and have a little screenshot of how to get to the search bar to search for the opportunities. It could be anything and everything, to be honest with you, whatever you think is suitable for your particular system. If it's an event system, it might be additional information about this is when the registrations are going to close. This is a sequence of events. This is when we're going to decide who can be a volunteer on the event. So anything you think is going to be relevant, the volunteer is going to be thinking about at that point in time. Okay. Okay. So next we're going to go on to, and this, sorry, I should say this works in exactly the same way. So we've got the HTML button up at the top here, the source button to view the HTML code. I see a lot of people, some people leave it as the default text on here. Has anyone left it as the default and not changed it at all, apart from Jamie, who on the sound of it? Emily,
Yeah, we've just left it as default.
I would ask yourself because when I've kind of more thought about this over the years, is what if this default text includes, okay, this is how to update your information. And so you've got to ask yourself, why would, if they've just registered and entered in that information, why would we be telling them this is how they update it? I don't know if there's any, at that point in time, there's no need for them to update it because they've just entered it in. So we kind of put that in there just to give it as an example, but I've noticed that some people keep that same example. And I would say definitely have a think about it and ask yourself just that fundamental question. What is going through a volunteer's mind directly after they've clicked on that register button? Do they need to know how to update their profile?
Steve, can I just ask a question on that?
Yeah, sure.
At what point do they automatically see this page, this registration help page at a certain point, or do they have to go to it?
No, absolutely, yeah. Do you want me to show you? Is it going to be beneficial if I show people here?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just like, yes, I'm not really clear about sort of how, where, at what point they see it, and if they see it automatically, then it does make sense to sort of make it relevant, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is the position in the registration process that it appears. So they land on the front page. They click on the register button here.
Yeah.
Type in their email, Steve. Okay. They click on to put in their email address. They click on the register button. It then sends them. We know this sends them a little email through to make sure it's a real email address.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to my inbox now. So imagine this is like your the volunteers Gmail account or Hotmail account or whatever it is. They log into their email. They see the email appearing here. Because I'm using the demo site. 1 second. So we can do it using the beta site.
So I suppose, yeah, are they, like you say, they filled in all the boxes. They filled in their name and address and, you know, all their profile, etc.
Yeah.
And then does it pop up that page, or?
Yeah, it pops up. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely that. Yeah. Yeah. So get it working here. I think the demo site doesn't send the email out because this is the demo site. Hopefully this will. Just try this here. I can't get to load, so I'm using test sites, not real sites. But yeah, without going into it, I don't want to drag it out too much. Without going into it too any further, it's essentially once they've registered. So once you click on that register button, you type in first name, last name, date of birth. When you get down to the bottom and you click on that register button, the next thing after clicking that register button, a window appears, filling up most of the screen, the volunteer. And what it shows that what's within that window.
Yeah.
Find login again. Too many tabs open here, isn't there? It's it. What appears is whatever's in here. Whatever is in here.
Okay. Right.
So yeah, so you want to make sure, like I say, try and think from the volunteer's perspective, what is going through their mind at that point in time? What questions, what things can you address at that point in time? And it's usually what happens next. It's usually what they're after, what they want to know.
Okay. So that's that text essentially, not the image with the ladies, you know, that stays. Yes, is that right?
Well, I think, in all honesty, no, because this image is related to the bit where it's talking about updating your profile text. And that's only, it may be relevant for some organizations, but for most of you, I don't think it will be, because most of you, a volunteer is registering, entering in their information, and then they're landing at a Windows appearing saying, this is how you update your information. It's like, why would they update it? They've just entered it in. It's brand new information. So what I'm saying is, don't just go ahead with the default. Like, really ask yourself, is this relevant to the volunteer at that point in time to read this information?
So essentially you can change not just the text, but get rid of that image and maybe just...
Yeah, I can just click on here and click on the delete button. Image is gone now, So if you think that the first thing you want them to go do is go and search for opportunities, well, I think the best way to do it is keep it really clear, almost like bullet points or numbered. Like number one, go and find an opportunity with a little screenshot. Click on the search button here. And like they've got down here, there's an image down here related to searching for opportunities. But my point I'm making, I suppose, in relation to the updating the profile information, not really relevant for most of you because they've just entered it in. So
okay, thank you. Yeah.
No worries. Next, we've got, we're near the end now. Next, we've got sharing videos or information, like help resources, essentially, with volunteers. So when you go into the super admin menu, you go down to volunteer provider resources. Okay, we've got a load of resources which have been added in here. Okay, and I can add additional resources for volunteers or providers or for both. Okay, has anyone used this option? Adding volunteer provider resources. Okay, I know some of you out there definitely have. Really? Okay. Well, it's a very good. If you think there's any, Andrea, I was going to say a few of you have. Thanks, Helen. Yeah. So if there's any information that you think would be useful for the volunteers or your providers, then you can add it in to volunteer and provider resources here. Okay. This might be the kind of things I tend to see in here are best practice. Volunteer best practice, like this is what we expect of you when you're on site on an opportunity. At the very least, these are kind of a code of practice that you should be sticking to. For the providers, I see things about, okay, help information for providers, making sure that they've got insurance in place, that, you know, if that's relevant to them, that kind of thing. So it's like helping providers, making sure that they've got all, you know, that they're fully prepped up and they're managing it in the correct way, and they've got the right things in place in terms of, you know, if they need criminal checks and this, that, and the other, that's dealt with, or if they need, yeah, you get the idea. You get the idea. So you can add your resources into this page here, and it's as simple as click on add resource, choose who it's for, volunteers, providers, or both. You say what the resource is. So if I say it's going to be just a title and some content, put a title in here, Steve's resource 1, put a blurb in there. Okay, I can change the thumbnail at the bottom, which is the image that appears when they're looking at the resource, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, a bit more text. Add. And now Steve's resource 1 is there. Okay, so how does that look from the volunteer's perspective? Let's take a look. So if I go into impersonate a volunteer, okay. So when a volunteer logs in, on this left-hand side, it says resources and help. And when they click on it, they see all of the guides, all of the information that you've added to the resources. Okay. So it's dead easy. It's always one click away. And for providers, it's slightly different. It's from the upper menu. Show you that. If I impersonate this provider, log me in as them, and then we'll see they go to help and resources on the top menu, providers do, and they see their resources here. Okay, so what kind of resources can be added? Well, the kind of resources you can add are title and content, as I just said before. Okay, a file, or it could be an external link out to external website or external resource. It's up to you. By default, what you have is your volunteers will automatically have first time help guide. What this is that new registration help window that appeared. Is that? I click on it. There you go. That's exactly what it looks like. So you were asking before about what it looks like when they registered. So literally when they register, this window appears like this, and they close it down before they can carry on doing anything. So it's telling them this is what happens next. Okay. And it also appears automatically by default. You can't avoid it within the volunteers, resources, and help. It's the first one that appears. Okay. And then there's other things. So what kind of things do you think you might be useful for your volunteers? Just give some ideas. I want to start picking names out.
Hi, Steve, it's Helen here again. We use this section quite a lot, actually. We lean quite heavily on it, and we have things
great.
like our volunteer handbook is in it. We have information for volunteers about how they claim expenses. We also keep maps of our sites in there, so the volunteers will be volunteering at different sites, so they can go to this area and see.
I've never heard of that one. The maps. That's a good idea.
Map of the site. So and some induction information. We also have a volunteer welcome video in that section uploaded as well.
Oh wow, you've really gone to town.
So we do use it a lot. I have a question about the section, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Is that all right? So because we are using it, like, well, not extensively. We've got about, well, you know, we've about maybe 16 files and stuff on there, and we know we can order it, so we keep the things that we need volunteers to use the most at the top. Is there a way of formatting this area? So say we wanted to put all of those maps, so we have 4 sites, so 4 maps. Is there a way of us creating something within the resource area that'll say, you know, like a file for maps or a file for induction information? So ordering that, not ordering this area, but organizing this area a little bit differently. Is that a function?
Organizing, I mean, like sorting the order that it appears in.
I suppose it's like going into resources and then having options within resources to make this more user friendly. So
yeah, so you mean like drill
here's
down,
like an area within each. So induction information, expenses information, because the expenses information that I have has like that we use has 3 different resources for that. You know, you've got your claim form, you've got your details, how to do it, you've got your bank details form. So just in terms of making this a bit more user friendly, is there a function that would allow us to create an area for
it's a good idea. I know there's no way currently of doing that. It's a good idea though, and it's something I made a note of. What you can do as a workaround meantime is what are you using for the images up here for the actual thumbnails?
Yeah, we are we've got
can I look at yours? Do you mind if I look at yours?
Yeah, go on. Yeah. So we have uploaded our own images for it.
Find your system again here. Is that it there? Is that your system there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Helen, we've got a feature request for folders in the resource area.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I'm talking about, Rolf. Yeah.
Which is in the list for the next version. It's not counted as a critical must-have.
Right.
So it's in the pool of stuff I try to get to if I've got time. So
Yeah.
it might not be in the next version, but enough people asking for it.
But that's what I'm talking about, isn't it, Rolf? Like,
yeah, you can just have folders. You could have a folder which is our maps, and then click on that, and then it shows all the map resources. So we've got that request already.
So if I just lobby people on the call for everybody to make that request, it bumps up the list.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep, that's how it works.
Sorry, I just stopped sharing for a second because I just want to make sure there's no data. Basically, just want to make sure that you're not seeing volunteers' names. I want to get the page up and then I'm going to reshare so people can see exactly what your setup is. Spare me a sec. I think it's really useful to see how other people do it, see what they do with it. So, okay, let's share my screen again. Source doesn't help. Okay, right. Share your screen again, Steve. Okay. Oh, no, sorry. Okay, so come to this resources and help, Steve. It's the last thing I want to. Okay, resources and help. So what we've got here is all the videos that you've uploaded from the volunteer's perspective, and what you're saying is a way of ordering these so it's easier for the volunteer to find the one that's relevant or find the one that they're actually looking for. Is that what we're saying?
You can already order them. What Helen's looking for is a way to organize them.
Oh,
so like I said, there's a feature request for folders coming, which should help Helen out.
Yeah, that should help quite a lot, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, the only kind of the workaround, I suppose, is using these images here to kind of group them while you're waiting for that to happen. You know, so you can use specific types of layout of a particular visual here, image here, to say, oh, these are all related to expenses because they've all got the expenses icon in the corner, for example. I've seen that on some other sites as well. Jump off there anyway. That's live data. Right. So yeah, any questions over that? Over the help and resources? No? Okay, good. Customizing automated emails. Okay, so if I get back onto this page here, the demo site, down to customizing emails. This is a big job. I know those who've been for the implementation of making sure that these are all worded correctly. Again, it's just all I want to do is just make sure you're aware that when you edit these, you've still got that source button at the top. So if you want to go to town with these customizing emails to kind of make them look more branded or to kind of match your kind of look and feel of your site, then you can go on here and use that source button and use the HTML to adjust them further. Has anyone got any queries over these emails? I'm guessing most of you have spent some time going through them all and checking the wording of them. And that is pretty much it. I had an exercise I was going to do, but I'm just looking at the clock now. I think we've been going on for a bit longer than I expected, so I might just skip over that exercise. But it's the final thing I just want you to think about is think about the journey. So it's about the experience, the volunteer's experience. Think about the journey from your website, actual website, to the volunteer getting to the point where they can register. because quite often I see this where customers will put a lot of time into the look and feel of their TeamKinetic front page, and they pick really nice pictures and all this kind of stuff. But then the actual journey, is buried so far within the menus for them to get to that page that it's a massive hindrance, and volunteers just don't find it, a lot of the time. So when the exercise I was going to get you to do, but I can tell you now, you can do this in your own time, is just get somebody else who's not aware, who's not familiar with your website, get a family member or something like that to go on there and say, okay, imagine you want to volunteer. Okay, what would you do? And watch, don't give them anything else. Okay, don't tell them what to click on at all, and watch what they do. And just to check whether your logic, because what you tend to find is when you do these things, if you've seen a website 100 times, you know exactly where everything is. And it pops up and you go, wow, you just go to there. And it's logical to me, you go to there. And this one, to be fair, is pretty straightforward. But other ones I've seen have been buried many, many clicks deep within the website.
Also, there is, if you do scroll down a little bit just below the fold, you can just log in and register straight away.
Look at that, perfect. Yeah, I was going to say this is a well-designed kind of intro page before hitting TeamKinetic. I can see it's straightforward. The first thing I went to was volunteers, search for volunteer, and it brought up the system.
You can use the button search for roles as well if you're already registered, or you just want to have a look to get an idea before you register.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. I'll just click on that, takes you straight. That doesn't drop you on the front page, it takes you straight to the search page.
Yeah, and there's also a button on that picture on the front page as well, so you can just search for roles. But yeah, I suppose register isn't that prominent actually.
Oh, and I think yours is fine, in all honesty. I don't think yours is quite my natural reaction when I thought. So what I do, I land on the front page, and I would say to myself, if I'm a volunteer, because I haven't seen all your front pages of all your different websites, not your TeamKinetic ones, I've seen them, but not your actual websites. And I ask myself, okay, if I wanted to volunteer now, what would I do? And it's so I see it quite often where people haven't had, because they know exactly where to go, but then the general public, you volunteer, you sat here who's like 75 years old, lands on this page, is I want to volunteer, and it's like hidden with it. The word volunteer doesn't appear anywhere on the page, and they're like, help, they have like, help us out, and they're like, I don't want to help you out, I suppose I'm helping you out, and then it'll be buried like 3 or 4 clicks deep. And then you want to avoid that. You want to make sure it's okay to do that. Just make sure at the very least that it's easy for someone who has very little IT experience to be able to navigate to your TeamKinetic system. Okay, and the best way to do that is get someone who's never seen your web page and just let them have a go at it. Watch them without any guidance and see what they do. Okay. Is there any questions over what we've covered today? Good. So the takeaways are, have a think about the front page, your focal points, your images that you're choosing for your front page of your site. Think about the source button if you want to update it using that HTML code. Make sure your provider profile pages are populated if you can. It's hard to do it sometimes at volunteer centers and you've got like 400 organizations on there. You're not going to get all of them, but if you can, when you chat to them, try and get them to do it if they haven't got that in place. That's a good thing to do. The CSS code, maybe if you've got someone in-house who knows CSS, most of you probably won't, to be fair. New registration help page, that's a big one. That's really what the 2 things I really want to focus on is this journey here to your TeamKinetic front page and your new registration help page. They're the 2 areas that I often think people don't put enough time and attention into. And that's going to really help your volunteers' experience. Okay. Is there any questions of anything I covered before we wrap it up? No? Okay. In which case, thank you for your time. Have a lovely day. Get straight involved with this after this session. Okay, I want you in there prattling around and checking out these things I've mentioned. And if you've got any questions, feel free to raise a support ticket or just give us a bell.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Take care. Have a lovely day.